previously on Alone in the Dark.
My God. Who the hell am I?
I'm Sarah Flores. I'm an art dealer. You're not a cop, are you?
I don't actually remember anything prior to waking up this evening.
Edward, he doesn't recognize me. I'm Theophile Paddington. A large part of your memories have been sacrificed in the process. This is what I released you from, Edward. What was trapped in the stone. We must reach the park. Meet me at the museum, Edward. Room 943.
What the fuck? Why did he do that? Oh, I think I'm gonna be sick.
Fuck this. What the hell is that?
Who was he yelling at?
No idea. Just give me a second.
Meet me in room 943? Oh, fuck that, I'm leaving. Jesus, you're cut. Almost down to the bone.
I'll be all right.
You're probably in shock and can't feel it. The museum is 30 blocks away. If you want to reach it, we have to stop this bleeding. Do you hear me? We have to get you some help. You're losing a lot of blood. You can't just stand there. Do you want to die? Come on, let's go. An ambulance! Maybe they can help us. Okay, one more time. Help me up there. Hey! Over here! Help! Hey! Stop! We've got to catch up with it!
Damn it, I think I'm gonna pass out.
All right, look, just stay here, okay? I'll take care of it.
Hey. Be careful.
Don't worry. I don't talk to strangers, apart from you. Hey, Theo's phone. Try to call 911. Maybe they can help.
Yeah, right.
Hey, over here! Get over here! Hey, wait up!
Crowley here.
Crowley? So you're still alive? I guess those fissures didn't feel like eating a pile of shit like you, huh?
Shut up. Paddington was wrong to give you the stone. It was destined for me.
So you saw that, huh? Where are you? Why don't you come up?
You forget the thrill of the chase. The fissures seem much too interested in you. Don't worry, I'll come at the right time. But let me tell you that holding onto the stone's only gonna make it worse.
How thoughtful.
So, after our less than graceful landing last time around, we now find ourselves in pretty dire straits with our health slowly draining away. The good thing is that we did manage to pick up Theophile's PDA, which is going to be a pretty helpful tool for us in the future, especially in this case where we can dial 911 and hopefully get some emergency assistance.
Dr. Hartford here. We're relaying the Central Park emergency calls.
Hey, I'm in Central Park and I'm badly wounded.
Who's not? At least you're still breathing. The park's public restroom should have first aid kits, so go find one and hold him, Drake. He's spitting blood everywhere.
A public restroom?
And in addition to being able to make calls, we also get access to this handy-dandy mini-map, which shows our next objective. Appears that we do have a slight obstacle before we can make it to the restroom, in the form of this brand new enemy, which Believe it or not, I think they are called vampires. That is with a Z at the end. And there are quite a few enemies in the game that have pretty edgy names, and, well, it's pretty unfortunate. But we really won't dwell on that. We kind of need to heal ourselves before we die in 5 minutes. Yeah, it is kind of unfortunate that we really can't soak in the atmosphere of these dreaded beasts trying to suck our blood. Mostly because we had to waste almost 2 minutes of our 7-minute countdown in pretty forced cutscene events. Good thing is that first aid station is right here, so we didn't actually have to go too far. Problem is that as of the last video, we have slowly been running out of jacket space. I didn't really mention it before, but you are pretty much limited to only being able to put larger items on the right-hand side and smaller items on the left-hand side, so there's no real intermixing. And it does lead to some pretty awkward situations where you're really going to have to juggle your inventory and manage it properly. For now, I'm not going to be using those glow sticks. I'm not really going to be using an extra stack of batteries, and while the double-sided tape is useful, it's not useful right now. So we can grab a bandage, and we can also grab some more first aid spray. And also, now that we have a phone, we can sometimes get text message updates that will be useful to us over the course of the game. In this case, the good Dr. Hartford managed to psychically understand that we just picked up bandages, and he is nice enough to send us a message explaining, well, how to treat more dire wounds. Yeah, we have been getting quite a bit in the way of tutorials, and they have all now been collected inside the PDA. In the case of treating these more serious wounds, it's pretty much exactly like treating minor wounds. It's just going to require a bandage to take care of. And even though it looks pretty serious, treatment is overall very simple. Still, we do have one other situation to take care of now, and that's this electrical wire here. And normally there is a tutorial tip that pops up here explaining that you can shoot the hinges that wires are attached to kind of dislocate them. It's just for some reason it decided not to pop up. Yeah, if we take a quick shot at this, the wire is now safely out of our way. Also in this nearby locker here, we can pick up some more nice items, such as some additional bullets, and our first handkerchief of the game, and another explosive bottle if we might need it. And, well, we are going to need it fairly shortly. Yeah, there is this brand new crack in the wall here, and as well, those vampires have not left the outside of the bathroom, there is no going back to try to reach the ambulance. So, we're going to have to make another way out of the bathroom here. And to do that, we are going to do our first bit of crafting. Yeah, there is some very minor crafting you can do in the game. In this situation, what we want to do is we want to make an explosive. So what we're going to do is we're going to combine the handkerchief and the explosive bottle, and that gives us a nice plastic Molotov cocktail. And with our new concoction, we can make a pretty handy-dandy explosion. And the game is actually nice enough to give you some slow-down, bullet time-esque things, so you don't really have to manage shooting there too precisely. And in case you do mess up, this magic locker will pretty much automatically refill with explosive bottles and handkerchiefs, so there's no harm in refilling up and getting another explosive ready, because well, there's going to be a whole lot more combat in this update than in the previous ones. So it's never a bother to, you know, stock up when you can. So I think we are pretty much set to go. So let's see what the back door of the bathroom holds for us. Certainly is an awe-inspiring vista, accompanied with yet even more really lovely Bulgarian choir music. Yeah, things are going to get a lot more dangerous here. First off, we are going to learn that we can shoot our gun while hanging, though the tutorial is pretty dangerous. Because vampires suddenly swoop in, and while you can try to deal with them while hanging, it's not really the easiest thing, so if possible, just try to swing down and survive as best you can. Now, the vampires themselves don't really do a whole lot of damage. I will say they are pretty tenacious, and since they are flying, they can follow you pretty easily. But they are pretty squishy. They will go down, as we just saw there, in just one handgun bullet. I would highly recommend never trying to fight them in melee combat. I don't know if that would ever really work out. I would say, though, that for however tenacious they are pretty single-minded. There is another source of blood nearby. They will pretty much just focus on that, leaving us to hopefully make a pretty easy escape through this sheet of glass right down here by our feet. I suppose you technically could use some of the pipes nearby. It's just we have, honestly, a plethora of bullets, so we don't really need to be too conservative with those for right now. Instead, we mostly need to worry about the environmental hazards that are still hounding us, and especially these very narrow walkways and pretty long distance jumps that we're going to have to deal with, while also dealing with what appears to be a seemingly endless horde of these little vampires. So, more or less, it's after you kind of weed them out, it's just best to run. Because it's pretty quickly that we managed to evade them by hopping into this precariously placed bus. Now we just need to get to the front of the bus, which in and of itself shouldn't be that hard. It's just as it is teetering on the very edge of this abyss, we are going to have to figure out some way to make it to the front without having it careen downwards. Good news is that there are plenty of dead passengers that we can use as a counterweight. And I guess it's an alright little physics puzzle. It's at least a lot better than the very weird chandelier fire extinguisher puzzle that we had to solve in the first video. And, I mean, it's at least somewhat intuitive. But with all those people at the back of the bus, we can now safely exit. Also, it almost seems like the radio is still playing on the bus, though I can't really make out the tune. Also, I do apologize here. It just was evading me that there was a box of bullets right there. But as it initially seems like we've made it to a dead end, in reality, we've hit the first real gauntlet of the game so far. And it can be a pretty dangerous one if you are not used to the combat. And understandably, it's reasonable that you aren't going to be used to it. You've had maybe, I don't know, 2 or 3 fights, and this fight, I don't know if the enemies are timed. They just sometimes seem to pop up at seemingly random. And being as you are on kind of a narrow platform and you have kind of limited melee options, you might try to, go for your gun. Or yeah, you might just, depend on the kind of lacking AI for the enemy and just kind of lead them to the edge to their doom. Thing is, after you've dealt with some of the more basic enemies, an upgraded version decides to pop out, along with its extendo tongue. And for this guy, I highly recommend using one of the flammable items nearby and just not dealing with him. Realistically, the reason I would say not to pick up one of the flammable items right off the bat is that they do have a limited lifespan. So, I find it best to try to leave it for the larger guy that you have to fight at the end. Still, we didn't suffer too much in the way of damage there. Still, we haven't really healed up to full after our original bandaging, so it doesn't really hurt. Especially considering it seems like they did assume you were going to get hurt in that fight, so they do give you another first aid spray right nearby. And it's also a good time to point out that, well, you might notice that the first aid spray does give a % of how much is left in it, but it also gives a little, explosive indicator, and that's because, well, your healing items can also be used as kind of makeshift weapons. Much like the mosquito spray can be used as a pseudo flamethrower, you can also use the first aid spray as a flamethrower as well. I guess if you're just in, quick need of a flaming weapon. Still, I think, relatively speaking, we're doing a lot better than the populace at large. It seems yet again we have reached another dead end. But you might recall that you can shoot open doors. And there we go, another puzzle easily solved. The question is, at this point, it does kind of feel like we're getting massively off track. It seemed before that I think our female companion easily could have pulled us upwards and we could have head to the ambulance with her. Instead, we seem to be taking a roundabout means to get back to her. In fact, it's kind of really difficult to tell, where we are. I didn't think we would be this deep down. Also, if you were wondering about that precariously placed car there, it is indeed a danger to us. That isn't the first MASH A QuickTime event. We did have one in the first video, and sometimes when you are knocked down, it will require you to press A to get back up. It's not something that comes up very often, though. Speaking of things that aren't going to come up very often, there are more mechanics to the car than just simply driving them around. That's right, you can get into the front and back seat. You can see here that we can turn on the radio and the headlights, and especially important, you can sometimes check the glove box for some additional items. For now, though, I think we should just go ahead and get out of this car. It doesn't seem that safe. Yeah, if you're wondering, that car will fall and definitely will knock you off and kill you if you're not careful. There are plenty of instant death traps waiting in this level, along with some very new abominations, such as this multi-faced lump of flesh that's hanging from the ceiling. Now, before we head down into the stink water there, might as well go ahead and take care of this cocoon. Problem is, well, our default bullets aren't really going to be much help. Instead, this is one of the first enemies where the only real thing you can do against it is use fire. Luckily, we did manage to make a brand new Molotov back in the bathroom, so we can use that, or, well, there are plenty of other explosives waiting down in the water, and, well, that's another reason why I think it's better to try to blow this up from up here, just so you don't manage to encase yourself in a bunch of explosions down in the water with a misplaced shot. Yeah, oddly, outside of looking monstrous, that large cocoon doesn't really have any offensive or defensive capabilities, so just a bit of an obstruction. And also, amongst all the items we can pick up down here, there is another rather odd little achievement you can get by shooting this goldfish. And it's nice that these two guys have found some companionship in the afterworld. He is indeed swimming with the fishes. But obvious jokes aside, it's now time we head into the second half of this chapter, into a very common trope amongst video games, and one that's pretty universally considered a bad idea, which is the idea of a sewer level. And I wish I could say that this particular sewer level was, I guess, a vast improvement over other sewer levels. I think one of the more common complaints with sewer levels is that they are pretty much repeated corridors, and, well, this doesn't, start out very well, considering that we just saw a very repeated corner there. But, I mean, at least it's a little bit more calm than the crevasse we just exited.
I'll make you a deal.
Like the one you dealt Theo? I'll pass, thanks.
How's the memory, Mr. Carnby? Still lost in Wonderland?
Carnby.
Yes, that's your name, you poor fool. Edward Carnby. Theo warned us the invocation might have some unexpected side effects. You've done some amazingly depraved things in your life, Edward. Really, you should be thanking us. In your shoes, I'd prefer to forget too. Of course, if you want to remember, I can certainly help you with that.
Tell me. Crowley! Fuck!
So Edward finally learns his surname, and we finally get the full indication that he is indeed Edward Carnby of the rest of the franchise, not just a brand new character who happens to have the same first name. Sadly, with that revelation, the sewers also happens to get into a pretty bad state. I mean, we've got this electrified water here, and that means that we are going to have to do a little bit more electrician work. Thing is, this is going to be a little bit more difficult than what we ran into in the lobby of the apartment. Instead, we have to push the wires together when the light is green. Otherwise, we will get a little bit of an electric shock and take a little bit of damage. I highly recommend, though, not stepping into the water when that large wire is in there, because, well, it'll either cause a lot of damage or it will instantly kill you. So as we do have another wire to deal with, this one requires a little bit more effort to get to. And you can just barely make out in the water there. It's more of those hopping creatures, which I was able to find out their names are apparently rats with a Z, so R-A-T-Z. Another unfortunate name. Yeah, we do have a few explosives down here, but our main point of interest is this electrical box. And the pattern on this one is slightly more difficult. It's not massively difficult. It's just, well, if you were paying really close attention to the electrical box, you might notice that, well, we are kind of waist deep in water, and one of the open wires is actually going straight into the water. So if you do manage to connect the wires while the light is on the red, yep, it is just instant death. So that's why I'm being a little bit overly cautious here, and, well, since I really didn't show it before, you do kind of want to space the wires out a little bit. You don't want them to touch, because that will not give you the proper connection you're looking for. So as we make our way back, we have another rat, but this one, it's not really easy to tell right off the bat, but this is an upgraded version. See that it did manage to take a whopping extra bullet to kill, and also, after we killed it, it left behind a light source for some reason. You might also have noticed it was a little bit illuminated itself, and we'll find out why later. For now, though, we are making a fairly good amount of progress through the sewer here. Just we have reached another obstacle of electrified water, and this time, well, we have to keep an eye out on that rat above us because it is a good indicator of how we can get across. Thing is, we do have to deal with a little bit of a timing puzzle here. Thing is, the timing between the steam expulsions from these pipes is pretty generous, so it's not really that difficult to deal with. You do want to be careful, though, because I think the steam from these pipes will still hurt. Which I did for purely experimental reasons. Thing is, we still do have plenty of healing spray, so no harm in healing up what little bit of damage we took. And while we do have that electrified water to deal with, we also have this, well, from the initial first sight it might seem like a puzzle room to deal with, but in reality for right now, it's more or less a place where we can refill some of our supplies in case we have used some. There's explosive bottles, bullets, plenty of flammable items and fire, and there's even a healing box in case we have taken, well, bandage levels of damage. Still, our main focus right now should be getting that wire out of the water, and to do so, we just have to use one of these longer pieces of piping here. And kind of gently finesse the electric snake that is this wiring. It can be a little bit finicky dealing with the wire physics in the game, but we managed to do it in fairly short work. As we saw in the short cutscene, our next focus is going to be this door right here. Problem is that it is not going to just straight open to us. It looks like the knob's broken off, and since it is metal, it's not really something we can reasonably break down. Instead, we are going to want to use an explosive, and while there was plenty in the room, this is another perfect chance to show a way to make a Molotov. Yeah, instead of using a handkerchief, you can actually use one of your bandages as the wick for your Molotov. And the reason that this is kind of a boon is that, well, you can only carry one handkerchief in one of the slots, and I think the bandages actually managed to stack up to 10. And realistically, over the course of the game, you shouldn't be needing bandages that much to heal, so bandages actually end up being a much more useful crafting item than just healing item. So, as the darkness continues to encroach upon us in the sewers here, you might be wondering, well, why is it so quiet?
What is this? Fuck.
Well, that silence doesn't last for long, though we do find a quick explanation for it. That's because there is this mysterious black goop in the sewer here that seemingly feeds on whatever it can come across. The one thing we were able to figure out from that cutscene, though, is that the black goop apparently really dislikes light. So we are going to use our flashlight as a means of defense against it and drive it back. The one thing I will say whenever dealing with this black goop here is you want to make sure and get all of it. If any little bit of it manages to get behind us right now and get back into the darkness, it will immediately reform and instantly kill us. And, well, from my own experimentation and numerous failures when I was doing a test recording, you will have to sit through that screaming little cutscene there every time if you happen to fail the section. So, yeah, it's a good idea not to fail here. It can kind of wear on your nerves pretty quickly. Still, we succeeded there pretty easily. And believe it or not, we are to pretty much the final puzzle of the sewer here. And it does manage to combine pretty much all the aspects of the puzzles that we have found previously. Our end goal is going to be that ladder over there that is currently being bathed in fire. And first things first, we have managed to unlock a shortcut back to that supply room from before. Still, the eagle-eyed viewer might know something in this larger room here. And that is a rat's nest. Now, a rat's nest can be pretty annoying thing to deal with, as you can already tell. It will spawn rats, and even more unfortunately, I think it will spawn an infinite supply of them. So, yeah, we are going to have to take care of that, and well, even more unfortunately, it can only be dealt with by fire. So we are going to have to take care of our unfortunate faced friend here rather easily. And while we do have a number of ways we can probably deal with that rat's nest, such as making a Molotov, there is a much more economical way we can deal with it, and in kind of a goofier way, and that is with this extremely deadly flaming chair. Now, why is this chair so useful to us? Well, considering that the rats are so low to the ground and their AI is kind of stupid, they will pretty much just ram themselves right into the flaming chair and the rat's nest there, as you can tell. Pretty perfect height just to kind of nudge it with a chair. Also, in case you were wondering what those illuminated rats do, they do spit poison, which you do have to blink away. So, hey, there was another use for the blinking mechanic, so it wasn't a total waste. Still, with all that taken care of, I now just had to de-electrify the water. And that allows us access to the valve, which should hopefully unblock that ladder. The slight problem now is that you might have heard something kind of splooshing about in the area nearby. And well, there is more black goop to deal with in here. And in fact, it's given such a wide area of space to kind of roll around in that realistically the flashlight is not really going to be able to deal with it fully, and we're going to have to figure out another way to deal with it. Good thing is, fire is just another extremely good source of light, and there is plenty of wood in here that we can light on fire. And in fact, I'm going to take a little horse friend here and get across this, well, inky black desert of darkness. I guess the most unfortunate thing about this this horse I'm bringing along with me is that while it's a very good companion to me, I sadly did not have a chance to name it, so I guess this is just going to be a trip through the desert with a horse with no name. Additionally, by the fact that you do bring fire with you, you can keep the fire at bay, or the darkness at bay as you make your way upwards, and
Hey! What are you doing down here? Hey, man! You happen to see my partners? We were attacked and we were separated. Jesus.
so it's simple enough to turn off the power here and make our way over to, hopefully, a gentleman with a very long lifespan.
Hey! You hear that? Oh! Oh, shit, no! Not again! Hey, look! Let's see if those little bastards like electricity. Hurry! Touch the fence with the cable and fry them once and for all. Oh, man. Oh, those things stink big time, huh? Okay, I've got to find my partners. The park is right up there. Good luck.
And good luck to you, random maintenance man. After all that hard work, we finally get back our mini-map. And, well, we have finally overcome the trials of the sewer. And now have to deal with an even more difficult trial in and of itself. And that is going to be the open world, though we do get another new text message. This time it is from our antagonist, Crowley. Now it does seem like he's given Theo here a number of other messages, and we'll get to those sometime in the future. For right now, feel free to pause this at your own leisure. I think it's just going over some background flavor for the Alone in the Dark universe and its lore. Nothing really we have to deal with for right now. Instead, we have a much more pressing issue to deal with. And that's the fact that as we are in a much more open area, that means that the game is going to feel more free to just throw just everything in the kitchen sink at us in a 360-degree circle of pain. But now that we are outside, you might notice that the mini-map is now strewn with car icons, and well, those are going to be cars that we can hopefully be able to drive to our next destination. And you might be thinking, hey, that electric golf cart, probably not the safest way to go, especially across this very debris-laden pathway. And to that I say, it's fine. It's what we got, and I'm just going to roll with the punches until this thing decides to barrel over and snap at Edward's neck. But yeah, in all honesty, the only reason to really take the electric golf cart is that you don't have to fumble around finding keys. It's just a simple button press. But it does go down pretty quickly. So there is a weird staticky circle over there, but we are not going to deal with that for right now. Instead, we probably just want to make it to that circle as quickly as we can. Bit of an issue, though. Seems there is a little bit of missing road, and even worse than that, there are now two of these very large bruisers here. Now, at this point, the game does decide to take off its kitty gloves. It starts to be a little bit less tutorial. And it kind of assumes that hopefully you've been able to pick up and accept some of the mechanics of the game, especially in regards to dealing with enemies. Realistically, you probably don't want to fight these two big guys. Instead, you might think to yourself, I don't know, maybe that gap on the map isn't really that big. There's a bit of a problem with that though, and that's because that gap there, it's a little bit bigger than it seems. So yeah, we are going to have to clear away this debris here in front of this makeshift ramp, and we're going to have to deal with those two big bruisers, so there's no real way around that. And that's kind of why I decided to speed this up here. Realistically, there are very easy ways to deal with the combat in the game, to kind of trivialize it, and I'm kind of hoping to avoid doing that just because it kind of gets a little boring just to, automatically insta-kill every enemy. Sometimes, though, it is probably the better idea. Though, in this case, they really do give you enough tools to not only blow up the debris, but also to deal with these two enemies. And I just end up making this a lot more difficult than it should have been. But hey, now that I've managed to knock them down, I can just flamethrower them pretty easily, though... spoiler alert, I think I could have actually done this while they were still standing and instantly killed them. So, yeah. Egg on my face, I suppose. Still, now that we have a little bit of breathing room, we can also see it's a good idea to probably take in your environment here, because you probably could have noticed the additional explosives here by the hot dog cart, along with this little explosive canister here. Thing is, though, that I find the canister is probably the most, cost-efficient way to blow up the cars here blocking the road. Still, could have been probably a lot easier means to deal with those two goons. Yeah, relatively speaking, I'd say that the road is pretty clear. Now, the only other thing we have to worry about is managing to hit any debris that's still lying in the way. And also the problem of making sure that we are definitely going fast enough to make that jump. So, after pulling off a sweet 180, it's time to pick up as much speed as we can in this American-made sedan. And cross your fingers and hope for the best.
Edward!
Miss me?
I told you he'd find us. Full name, please?
Edward... Carnby.
Memory coming back?
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, have a seat and let me take a look while it searches. Christ. You can thank the lady. It was high time to fix this. Bad news is we ran out of painkillers an hour ago. Grit your teeth. Your friend told me about your amnesia. Post-traumatic stress can do that. Hardly surprising. I don't think you'll be the only one trying to forget tonight. I mean, the ground opens up and cuts us off from the rest of the city. Jesus. Well, there you go. Not my best work, but it'll last the night. Here we go.
What do you got?
Must have pulled the wrong file.
Let me see. Professor Edward Carnby. Researcher. Paranormal investigator. Huh? Solved the case of Jeremy Hartwood's suicide at Tercitos Manor in 1924. Disappeared under strange circumstances in 1938. What the fuck?
Never mind.
Here. Notable scars and marks. Large scar on the left side of the face.
You're kidding. I mean, you're like...
100 years old.